Hey guys, Max92 and welcome back to another reading journal. This is the reading journal for December 2021. It's the last one. It's the last one talking about 2021. Here we are at the beginning of January as I record this. I'm running a little behind schedule today, so I've got my lunch here. And my special drink for this episode is a non-alcoholic sparkling rosé. So, this month, I've got 6 books, because I got 2 of the manga boxes this month. The November box and the December box both came this month. The December box actually came before Christmas, and the November box came just at the end on like the 30th, so I barely got in all of them. I'll just start from the top of the pile here. I have Volume 1 of the Pokémon Adventures Sword and Shield manga. We got Henry Sword and Casey Shield. There are characters here, but for some reason, and I don't know if this is something that happens in other Pokemon Adventures manga because I haven't read them, but for some reason we also have this audience surrogate Marvin here, who kind of feels unnecessary, because like playing Sword and Shield, your player character is one of these, probably. Then you got this little kid, Marvin, here to be like, I have no idea what anything is, I'm new in town. So that they have a reason to explain everything. I don't know, it's a kid's book, you know, it's for like, kind of a much younger audience. And there's like a little bit here, but it just sort of like, I sort of fell off Pokemon, because I was getting back into Pokemon pretty big towards the end of Sun and Moon, especially the card game, for a variety of reasons. Sword and Shield just sort of put me off, and this is not putting me back on even slightly. It's not like terrible, but it's very much like for a significantly younger audience, and I think some of the stuff it's doing, again, having that sort of audience surrogate character just feels unnecessary. I don't know, I don't really like the actual physical book. It's a weird shape, or it's a weird like size compared to all of the other manga I have here. It's a bit shorter and a bit wider than the other books, so I don't know why it's in this specific format. At some point I want to read some of the older Pokemon Adventures and how those are. So yeah, this thing, not that interested in it. So the next book we have here is Cosmo Familia. It says on it, on the back here, I don't know if you can read that, but it says it's from the artist of the Madoka Magica manga. I don't know really anything about Madoka Magica other than that it exists, so I don't know what that entails. I really don't understand what's going on in Cosmo Familia. It's very confusing, like, as to where the narrative is going. Like, it starts out and you're thinking it's like, okay, it's about like weird space aliens and this little girl's missing family. Okay, cool. And then like halfway through the volume, she jumps down a well, like accidentally falls down this well, kind of accidentally, and is now 20 years in the past. And that's a sudden change in plot devices. Now we're time traveling, not just space. And there's like a intergalactic police force that exists. I don't know, there's just a lot of stuff, and none of it really connects very well. It has like a kind of interesting mystery floating around it, but like, it's really just confusing, and I don't know what's happening at a given moment. I don't know. I tend to like sort of science fantasy type stuff, but this is just confusing, both like narratively and sometimes visually, especially when in like the action scenes. I have some screenshots that I'll try and find and toss up here. I just sometimes can't tell what is happening in the action shots. It's a bit nonsense visually sometimes. The sort of character stuff is alright and whatnot. Can I recommend Cosmo Familia? I don't know. I feel like you'd have to read it yourself to find that out. Like, it's just sort of confusing to me. I might actually look in and read a bit more of this just so I can maybe try to figure out what is going on. And it has some sort of like Alice in Wonderland type motifs. Like, the main character's name is Alice, and again, she falls down a well. But like, I don't really know if that's just like taking little concepts or if there's actually like some sort of underlying relationship to that story, because we got these like weird little creatures are kind of from space and they like to eat things and cause property damage, and I don't know, it's just like the book starts in one place and by the time you're done with the volume you're like, where are we going? Like, where are we going? Where does this go? I don't understand. It's got some action, but not that much. I don't know. Check it out if you want to. Don't if you don't. I don't mind either way. I have no stake. The next book we have here is Ruroni Kenshin Restoration, which is a remake of Ruroni Kenshin by the original author to coincide. It's from like 2012 or whatever, and it was to coincide with the live-action movie that came out. It's only like 2 volumes. And this volume only has like 3 chapters in it. It's got 4. And for some reason, the prologue chapter is at the end of the volume. I don't know why they would have placed it there. It's a silly place for it. I don't know, like, anything about Kenshin to begin with. So, this is kind of confusing, but not in the same way Cosmo Familia is. The way that this is confusing is that I can tell it's sort of a abridged version of this story. Like, it feels like everything is sort of rushing along a little bit, and it just feels like it doesn't give the story space to breathe. I don't know what the original looks like art style wise, but this doesn't look like what I think Kenshin looks like. This looks a bit more modern than that, but I don't know. I don't know anything about Kenshin really. I probably should just actually read Kenshin instead of trying to find a second volume of this, because, like I said, this is a much shorter 2 volumes rather than I think Kenshin is 28 when I looked into it. 2 volumes, and it's basically just marketing material for a live-action movie. Like, it's not bad, I just should probably read regular Kenshin instead. That's my full takeaway from Ruroni Kenshin Restoration. So the next book I have here is, it's German. I'm gonna go with Frieren, Beyond Journey's End. And the concept here is that we are starting the story at the sort of end of a long quest. The Demon King has been defeated, and they're coming back, and they're like, yeah, we did it. And we're following this mage character, Frieren. Again, I think that's how it's pronounced. And she's our sort of lead. Frieren is an elf, and she lives significantly longer than humans do. Like, significantly longer. Already has lived a lot of time. And to her, the 10-year quest they were on really wasn't that much time in the grand scheme of things. It was just a little bit of time that they had together. In a sense, this book is kind of about, like, coping with loss and sort of about reconnecting with, like, understanding taking it the time to figure out what is important in life to you. It's just sort of, like, really emotionally poignant. It starts out with, like, bigger time skips, but then it sort of slows down 70 to 80 years, a little over 70 years after the end of their 10-year quest, where the story starts. 70 years later, they get, like, is where it does some skipping around, and then it stops and starts going a bit more slower with its time then. I recommend, highly recommend Frieren, Beyond Journey's End. It's got a lot going for it in terms of how it emotionally structures itself. It is about, you know, like, loss in a sense, and what life means when you live so long, and how that compares to the relative brevity of human life. Check it out. It's good. I will search out more of this if there is more of it available as of yet. I don't know when this specific volume came out. Oh yeah, this specific volume came out just back in November, so it's pretty new. So there might not be more to look into yet, but I will probably look more into it. Next up I have Can't Stop Cursing You. This was supposed to be in the manga box for July, but it came in the manga box for November. That's when I got it finally. There was some delay in getting copies of it, so they shipped it out in the November box, rather. This is Death Note, but not as good, pretty much. It feels like it takes a lot of inspiration from Death Note in terms of its concept, but it's just not as good. Your concept here is there are these curse gods, and people can make pacts with them, and through that, they have the requirement to curse kill a certain amount of people within a certain time period to get the thing that they want, whatever they want from this pact. And there are rules to the curses, how people can be killed via the curse. And, you know, the curse god sets out these limitations to make it so, you know, it's a challenge for the contractor, as with the terminology the book uses. And, okay, so it's Death Note, but it's a bit less interesting because all the kills are the same. And then you got this dude on the front. He is a curse breaker. He has some special ability that lets him help figure out who is doing the curses and stopping them, you know, essentially. He's got a special ability that helps him figure it out. And that special ability that he has is, I can't remember what it's called, but what it does is he can basically just ask the curse god's essence left behind after a kill a question, a yes or no question. And then using those yes or no questions, you can piece together who it is, who the killer is. I have a feeling that you could get some decent arcs out of this concept, but this specific Volume 1 is just Death Note, but worse. I mean, Light is a lot more complicated than the kid in here. This kid is literally just like, everyone calls me a prince, and because of that, I get off on getting to do whatever I want terrible to people. Because everyone thinks I'm really great otherwise, so when I do terrible things to people, I get a lot of enjoyment out of it, especially since I could do these terrible things with no one finding out. And so he doesn't really go to the curse god making a pact for something. He just goes to the curse god and is like, I just want to kill people. I want to do it. And it's like, oh, hey. He's just kind of cartoonish in terms of his, like, villainy. Whereas Light has some, like, complexity. Light has this veneer of, like, some sort of righteousness behind him. Not like, I'm a sadist, and that's it. You've got the sadist prince coming up against an adult. Like, L and Light are, like, similar age, and it's sort of like a battle of geniuses, and they're like, who's gonna win out? And, you know, that carries the story up until that portion of the story ends very well. It's great. This can't even really carry it in this volume. Like, it's not like an even matchup, even slightly. Our detective dude is significantly smarter than the kid. Full stop. He's also basically our protagonist, even though you do get some insight in the antagonist of it. Their story is just in this volume. The next volume, you have a different antagonist. Again, it's pretty much Death Note, but what if you could serialize Death Note forever? You know, what if Death Note wasn't this specific story, but you could in fact keep taking the concept and doing it over and over again? And again, like I said at the beginning, I think you could get some alright arcs out of this concept. But this is not a great showing of what that concept can be. You know, because the concept of what if somebody else had the Death Note is a pretty interesting concept. With the Death Note, you could make the kills seem so different that they don't seem connected. In this, they're intrinsically connected because there's only one, there's one specific way that they happen. So it's just like, there's less opportunity. But I feel like I said, there is a potential for some decent arcs here. I'm not gonna read more to find out when they happen. I'm just not that interested in this. I do think that this protagonist character is alright. He's not just L. He's got, again, he's an adult. He's got a bit more going on to him. He's got more of the sort of like arrogance of your typical shonen protagonist weaved into him, along with the like quirkiness. But like, I'm not gonna read any more of this series, so there's no point. If that sounds interesting to you, if Less Good Death Note sounds interesting to you, go on right ahead, but it's not for me. Final book here. Akira Toriyama's Manga Theater. This is a compilation of basically one-shots and limited series that Akira Toriyama did from the late 70s to the late 90s. It's really interesting. Really, really cool. This book was in the December manga box. It's like a $30 book. Hardcover. High quality. It's a great time. So what we have here is kind of a chronicle of how Akira Toriyama's sort of interests and art style have developed and changed or not changed that much over the years. The earlier stuff in here, Wonder Island, and that sort of stuff, those honestly have this sort of chibi, caricature-esque style that you can still tell is Toriyama. Like, you can tell that it comes from there. But, like, it really isn't until, like, Escape and Pink, those ones in here, like about halfway through, a little less than halfway through, that you start seeing the sort of style that came from Dragon Ball. And like some of this took place while he was making Dragon Ball. By Dragon Ball I mean more Dragon Ball Z. I don't have that much experience with original Dragon Ball, but the style by the time you get to, like I said, Escape and Pink and these later ones is very similar to what it was in like Dragon Ball Z. And I think that's really interesting, just to sort of catalog the change over time of how he tended to draw. But in addition to that, it also is a really cool showcase of how Toriyama has like a handful of interests and a handful of faces he tends to draw, and this like handful of things, and like he likes aliens from space, he likes devil monster creatures, he likes cute girls, he likes writing stories about like children and, you know, weird fights and all this sort of stuff. And he has like this handful of faces he tends to draw, and all of it's in Dragon Ball. Every single bit. Like Dragon Ball is this like culmination of everything Toriyama is interested in and interested in drawing and whatnot. And this book sort of really emphasizes that to me, how much that is the case. You know, Dragon Ball is a thing that he writes too, so it gets a lot of the stuff that he likes to write about. You know, aliens from space and robots and, you know, children. Like, Dragon Ball is about a child, about a handful of children to begin with. And, you know, a child. There's two different stories in here that read like proto-Dragon Ball. One of them is literally called Dragon Boy, and The Adventure of Tong Pu. Those two stories feel kind of like proto-Dragon Ball type stuff. I just think this is a really cool piece to have, a whole cool book to have, because it has all this sort of information, I guess you could say. It's got all this stuff about Dragon Ball you know, like, it shows you where Dragon Ball came from, in a sense. It shows you the sort of stuff that Toriyama likes to draw and likes to write about and all that. And it's a really, really cool book. So, like, if 100%, I recommend buying this book because it's cool. Like, it's hardcover. It's a really high quality book here. It's a very high quality collection, and I highly recommend it. So yeah, I think that's all the books I got this month, actually. So we'll just call this episode here. Let me know in the comments. What do you think about Pokemon, Cosmo Familia? Have you read any of this stuff before? Have you not read any stuff? Have you heard of any of this stuff before? What are your thoughts? Leave a comment below. Let me know. Like the video if you liked it. Dislike it if you didn't. Go in the description. Links to all sorts of places. Whatever. Subscribe, maybe. You want to keep up with this and other shows. Do the things. Do the things. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. And I'll see you next time. Bye.